The ballroom went silent the moment Darius Cole took Amara's hand. Crystal lights shimmered over Lagos Lagoon through the glass wall of the Eco-Atlantic Grand Hall. Cameras flashed. Executives from Coltech Global leaned forward, ready to witness what they believed was impossible. Darius, Billionaire CEO, the man rumored to break into rashes if a woman brushed his sleeve, stood with a poor cleaner dressed in a borrowed gold gown and announced, voice steady, "Meet my fiancée." A gasp rolled across the room like thunder. His mother, Mama Ume, clutched a string of prayer beads. His father, Mr. Cole, crossed his arms to hide a tremble only family could read. The board chair, a thin man with a thin smile, nodded to the press like a choir conductor. "Closer," he said softly. "Let the camera see love." Darius lifted Amara's hand higher. Everyone watched his skin for the first angry red flare that always came. He did not wear gloves. He did not step back. He only watched Amara, eyes dark as midnight water, saying without words, "Are you ready?" Amara nodded, though her knees shook in the narrow heels the stylist had forced on her. She had been a cleaner 48 hours ago. Tonight, she was draped in gold that smelled faintly of lavender and tape glue. The surge of attention pinned her like a butterfly. "Smile," the photographer whispered. Darius's fingers closed around hers. Nothing happened. No rash. No sneezing. No frantic reach for ice or antihistamines. The man who could not touch women without breaking out stood calmly, holding the hand of a woman most guests would not have let into their front gate a week ago. The ballroom seemed to fold in on the moment, holding its breath. Mama Ume's beads slipped through her fingers and scattered across the marble. Mr. Cole blinked hard as if his eyes were playing tricks. The board chair's smile faltered. Amara felt the warmth of Darius's hand, the faint tremor he hid behind his famous posture, and the weight of 1,000 eyes. She also felt something she could not name, a tiny hum in the air, like the first pluck of a stringed instrument before a song begins. "Now," the board chair said, recovering, "seal it with a kiss." Darius's jaw tightened. Everyone knew that was the line he had never crossed. He could tolerate brief contact through layers, 5 seconds at most, with doctors standing by. Kiss. Never. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, forcing a light laugh that did not reach his eyes, "let's not rush." The lights dimmed for drama. Phones rose like a small forest of black leaves. A drum line hidden behind the curtain tapped a heartbeat rhythm. "Kiss," someone chanted softly. The word caught. "Kiss. Kiss." Amara felt his hand squeeze once. Not a question. A warning. Then Darius leaned toward her and she lifted her chin, and the room dissolved into the space between two faces. She saw an old scar at his temple, a half-moon mark she had missed earlier. A silver pendant rested at the base of his throat, engraved with a symbol she recognized from her grandmother's stories, a spiral with 4 points like tiny claws. Her heart thumped a double beat. He brushed her lips. At first nothing. Then a faint sting flared along his jaw. A thin welt crawled up his neck like a red snake drawn by heat. Darius trembled. Amara started to pull away, but his palm pressed lightly to the small of her back, steadying her. The welt stopped. It faded. The redness cooled and vanished as if a hand wiped it away. The room burst into applause, loud and wild. The board chair laughed too quickly. Mama Ume sank to her knees, whispering thank you. Mr. Cole's face softened into hope. Only Amara and Darius heard the last sound, a sharp intake of breath from behind the curtain, followed by a voice they both recognized for different reasons. A voice from the old world and the new, rough with age and salt air, hissing, "So it's true. She is the one." The drumline missed a beat. The curtains stirred. Darius's hand tightened again, and Amara realized he was not looking at the cameras or the board chair. He was looking past them all, into the shadows, at the figure she could not yet see. 48 hours earlier, Amara had been pushing a mop across polished tiles on the 24th floor of Coltech Tower in Victoria Island, Lagos, still damp from the afternoon's rain. Her back ached. Her mind buzzed with numbers. The price of antibiotics for her little brother in Ajigunal, the rent due in 2 weeks, the cost of rice and palm oil. She whispered to herself as she worked, the way she always did when she was tired, 2,000 for medicine, 5,000 for rent, 1,000 for transport, and the elevator pinged. She stepped back, pulling her mop bucket close. Darius Cole stepped out, tall in a navy suit. 2 guards trailed him at a distance like shadows afraid of light. He wasn't supposed to be here this late. The tower had emptied after the quarterly earnings call. Everyone had watched him on screens as he delivered numbers like a warrior delivers arrows. Fast, clean, accurate. Then he had vanished, as he often did, before reporters could corner him with personal questions. Amara tried to move aside without looking up. Eye contact got cleaners noticed, and getting noticed got cleaners scolded. The wheel of her bucket caught on a floor joint with a metallic click. The bucket lurched. Soapy water sloshed over the rim. Darius stopped short. A drop of water landed on his cuff. He did not shout. He did not sigh. He only looked at the drop, then at Amara. The guards froze, waiting for the shaking, the rash, the sneezing fit that came whenever a woman's presence brushed too close. Amara lifted her chin anyway. She had learned that shame only made people crueler. "Sorry," she said in a steady voice. "The floor joint is loose. I reported it. They didn't fix it yet." Darius's gaze flicked to the joint, then back to her. "What is your name?" "Amara Ume." "Amara," he repeated as if tasting the meaning. "Grace that stays. How long have you worked here?" 3 months, she said. "Night shift. Cheaper bus fare." He nodded once, then did something she'd heard he never did. He moved a half-step closer within arm's reach to look at the broken joint. The guard stiffened. Amara watched his jaw lock, the way people brace before they touch a hot stove. Nothing happened. The air smelled like rain and floor cleaner. "You reported it to who?" he asked as if the details mattered. "Supervisor. Twice." He took out his phone. "Facilities please," he said softly into the speaker. 24th floor. "Fix the floor joint now." He hung up and glanced at the guards. "Give her a new bucket." "Sir," one guard said, eyeing Amara like she might explode. "Should we?" "I'm fine," Darius said, but his eyes stayed on Amara's face longer than they needed to, trying to solve a problem without a formula. Then he stepped away and the moment broke like a thin sheet of ice. The elevator doors closed on his profile and the tiny silver pendant at his throat, the spiral with 4 points. The next night she was called into HR. The office was too cold and decorated with fake plants that tried to look expensive. A woman with sharp glasses smiled without warmth. "You are Amara Ume." "Yes." "You have been selected for a temporary assignment." The woman slid a document across the desk. "Confidential. Highly compensated. 1 week minimum, possibly longer. You will sign a non-disclosure agreement. You will obey every instruction. You will not ask personal questions. You will never touch Mr. Cole without his permission." Amara kept her face blank the way market women keep a straight face when a buyer throws out a foolish price. "What kind of assignment?" The woman's smile thinned. "You will play the role of Mr. Cole's fiancée." Amara blinked. "Ma." "You heard me," the woman said, more gently this time. "It's to appease his parents and settle investor nerves. It is a public performance only. He needs a partner who can follow rules. Someone he can stand near." Amara thought of her brother's medicine and her mother's tired face. "Why me?" The woman glanced at a note and then at Amara as if seeing her for the first time. "2 reasons. 1, you are not connected to the press. 2, you were within 1 arm's length of Mr. Cole for 20 seconds last night." He did not react. Amara remembered the hum in the air, the feeling she had not been able to name. "And if he reacts? Doctors will be on standby. You will be protected. But if you talk," the woman added, tapping the NDA, "you will lose everything. Do we understand each other?" Amara sighed. She did not tell them that the symbol on Darius's pendant matched the one her grandmother had carved into a calabash when Amara was 6. She did not tell them her grandmother had whispered, "The curse breaks only when the palm that carries grace meets the heart that knows restraint." Old women speak in riddles. Young women do not have time for riddles when rent is due. 2 days later, here she stood under 1,000,000 watts of light, holding Darius's hand while the world held its breath. The kiss came and went. The welt rose and vanished. Applause crashed over them like a warm ocean. Behind the curtain, the voice spoke again, low and fierce as the drumline found its rhythm. "Keep her close," it said, "or you will lose more than your company." Darius did not look at Amara this time. He looked at the shadows, then at his parents, then at the board chair. He lifted their joined hands high like a victory flag. Camera screamed with light. The curtains rippled. A figure stepped out, hood low, face hidden, palm marked with the same spiral etched on Darius's pendant, only burned into skin. "Mr. Cole," the figure called, voice carrying over claps and cheers. "Ask her what she saw on your neck. Ask her who taught her the countermark." The applause died. Mama Adi's beads lay scattered like fallen stars. Amara's mouth went dry. She had not told anyone about the symbol. She had not told anyone about her grandmother. Darius lowered their hands slowly and turned to her, eyes searching, voice barely above a whisper. Amara, what did you see? The figure lifted a hand. Security moved. The lights flickered. The drumline stopped. And the red welt that had faded from Darius's neck flared back to life in the exact shape of a spiral with 4 tiny claws. The lights sputtered and steadied. Security swarmed like bees scattered by smoke. The hooded figure with the burned spiral slipped back into the curtains, leaving whispers behind like footprints on water. Darius didn't wait for the board chair to regain control. He guided Amara off the stage with a grip that looked polite to the cameras but felt urgent and firm. A private hallway opened to a service elevator. Mama Adiz gathered her fallen beads and rushed after them. Mr. Cole barked orders to security in a voice that filled spaces the drums had emptied. The board chair, Kane with his perfect smile and foreign investors' eyes, stayed at the edge of the stage, already whispering to the press, turning shock into headlines. In the elevator, silence pressed close. Darius's throat showed a faint trace of red where the spiral had flared. Amara could see the rims of his eyes, the only place the calm cracked. "Are you hurt?" he asked. "No," her voice came out soft. "You?" He shook his head once, the gesture as contained as everything else about him. Mama Adiz clasped Amara's hand without thinking, then flinched as if she had touched fire. Not because of any rash, because of what she saw. "Child," she breathed, "your palm." Amara turned her hand over. The old mark lived there, a shallow crescent scar at the base of her thumb, almost the same spiral as Darius's pendant, only softened by time and chores, drawn with a charcoal paste when she was 6 and feverish, while her grandmother sang and traced a circle that spiraled inward and outward like a tide. "What is that?" Darius asked, voice level, eyes not. "Why?" Amara said because the elevator dinged and she needed words that would not break anything yet. "It's a why from long ago." They stepped into the penthouse suite reserved for Cole family emergencies, the kind that wore suits and ties and the kind that lived in the spaces between stories. A doctor in a smart black dress was already there rolling a kit toward them. She was African-American, mid-30s, direct eyes. "Maya Thompson," she said, nodding to Amara, then to Darius. "You held it together. Proud of you. Let me see." Darius sat on the edge of a low sofa. Dr. Thompson examined the fading red like a weatherwoman reading a stubborn storm on radar. Localized flare. No respiratory response. Pulse steady. She looked at Amara. "How long were you in contact?" Amara glanced at Darius's hand. "Not long. He took my hand. Then, he kissed me." "Which normally would send him into hives and wheezing," Dr. Thompson said matter-of-factly, as if discussing rain in the rainy season. "But it faded." "Interesting." "It returned," Mama Adiz whispered. She had stopped at the door, fingers on the beads tucked into her lace wrapper. "When that person spoke. When it showed the mark." "Elder Jonah," Mr. Cole said, arriving at last, shutting the door behind him with a soft click. His voice dropped, not for secrecy but for weight. "He's no one's employee. He came before the company. Before the city stood here on the sea." Kane's voice filtered in through the sealed windows as if through glass and water. Cameras still flashed. A rumor was climbing the building faster than any elevator. Dr. Thompson packed away a syringe she hadn't needed. "Medically," she said, "we still call this idiopathic contact urticaria. Fancy way of saying, we don't know. We have managed it. We have not cured it." She looked at Amara with a scientist's curiosity that wasn't unkind. "Until tonight." Amara held the doctor's gaze. "He doesn't react to me the same." She wasn't ready to say at all. Her palm tingled where Darius's heat lingered. The hum in the air again like a string warming to pitch. "Because of the mark," Mama Adiz said, crossing the room at last, gathering courage the way some people gather shawls. She reached for Amara's hand and stopped short, looking to Darius. He nodded. She turned Amara's palm up, eyes wet. "I know this sign. My grandmother drew it," Amara said. "Ngozi Ume. From Alanta near Oweri." She called it the countermark. "For calming what burns." Mr. Cole exhaled, a sound as old as a father's first fear. "Adiz," he said. "Tell them. Enough dancing around." Mama Adiz looked at her son, then at Amara, then at the door, as if expecting the hooded figure to walk through it as easily as a memory. "When Darius was 10, she began, he fell into the lagoon chasing a ball. A woman pulled him out, not from the water, but from where fear had taken his breath. She wore a spiral carved into a calabash. She pressed his chest, spoke to the current, and he coughed and lived. After that day his skin changed. If a woman came too close, his body thought the sea had rushed in again. It fought. It burned. Dr. Thompson folded her arms, listening without the smile people wear when elders speak of spirits. She had learned to listen in this family. We searched, Mama Adiz continued, for the woman and for the mark. Elders said the line of the sea's keeper promised a child of grace. A palm that could close the breach without taking his breath. She looked at Amara's scar as if it were a letter finally delivered. We looked in shrines and churches and clinics. We looked everywhere except the 24th floor at night, Amara said, and the slightest laugh broke like foam and vanished. It wasn't funny. But the room needed the sound. Dr. Thompson's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, frowned. Board Chair Kane has the press in the hallway. He's saying the engagement is a stabilization strategy and that Coltech's leadership is strong and united. He's also suggesting we give them one more photo. A ring close-up. She looked at Darius. He's buying time. For himself. Darius's jaw tightened. He wants to see if the magic fails twice. Amara's eyes flicked to his pendant. Why do you wear that? He thumbed the small spiral at his throat, a habit he'd had so long he didn't notice it. Promise, he said. To my parents, to the woman who pulled me out, to myself. To find the palm that calms the fire without faking it. Elder Jonah, Mr. Cole said, tasting the name like a warning. He's the one who keeps the old promise alive. That burn mark was not fashion. It was pain. He will not let us pretend. Above them, distant bass from the ballroom bled through the vents, the sound of a party trying to restart a story that had turned. Why me? Amara asked at last, though she already knew the answer in her bones. It still felt like standing on the edge of a long bridge and needing someone to say it is safe to step. Because you walked near me and I did not drown, Darius said simply. The line was plain as a stick in sand. No sweetness. No poetry. True enough to hold. He reached for her then, palm to palm. Dr. Thompson stiffened out of habit. Mama Adiz whispered a prayer. Mr. Cole watched the way fathers watch surgeons sew the last stitch. Their hands met. Nothing burned. It was more than nothing. Darius's shoulders lowered a fraction, the first breath of a man who had learned to breathe short. The pendant warmed against his skin. The air hummed, not loud, not dramatic, just like a generator easing on in the background when Nipa blinks. A shared relief passed between them, the kind you don't speak of because naming it scares it away. From the corridor came the soft scrape of a bare foot on marble. The sweet door, dead-bolted and guarded, creaked. Dr. Thompson turned. Mr. Cole stepped toward the door. Mama Adiz's beads clicked like a soft rain. Darius did not release Amara's hand. The door swung inward. Elder Jonah stood there dripping. Not with sweat. With water. It leaked from the hem of his faded cloth and pooled under his feet, clear and clean as lagoon water at dawn. His hood was down now. His face was carved with years and salt. The burned spiral in his palm was angry and red. How did you, Mr. Cole began? Some doors open for words, Jonah said, his voice the rasp of rope over wood. Some open for water. He set a small calabash on the rug. A silver fish flicked once inside it and stilled as if it were made of light and breath. You have found the counterpalm, he said to Darius without ceremony. Good. Now honor cannot be faked. Kane's laugh, practiced and shiny, rose faintly from the hall outside as he charmed another microphone. Elder Jonah ignored it the way the sea ignores a spoon. What do you want? Darius asked, steady. What the promise demands, Jonah said. If you will bind this girl's life to your own to save face and stock price, bind it for truth. Bride price by dawn, or the mark on your neck will stop listening to her palm. The seventh night will burn what it spared tonight, your health, your house, and your name. Amara's mouth went dry. Bride price by dawn. Her mother counting money for antibiotics. Her brother's cough. The bus rides. The sound of the sea in a city that forgot it was built on water. We discussed a public performance, Mr. Cole said, throwing his voice like a shield. Not the old thing? Elder Jonah's eyes flashed. Then go announce your fake love to those cameras and watch the red snake climb his throat tomorrow when her hand is not in his. You make deals in daylight. The sea counts at night. Dr. Thompson stepped between worlds the way doctors do when they speak both science and the language of a family's fear. Elder, she said carefully, we need time. We need to test. We need to understand. Understand this, Jonah said, tapping the calabash. The fish flicked again and the water in the bowl glowed softly for a breath. You will not steal this girl's grace and pay her with dresses and headlines. If she is to carry him through the burning, you will carry her name with respect. or I will speak to the water as I did when he was 10. And the sea does not stop for stock price. A knock rattled the outer door. Kane's voice slid through, smooth as oil. Darius? One photo. Ring and smile. Investors love a ring. Elder Jonah's eyes slid to the door, then back to Amara. Child, he said, and the word landed like a hand on a shoulder in a storm, steadying. What does your grandmother say? Amara swallowed. The old woman's voice rose in her memory, salt and smoke and the soft slap of wet cloth against a basin. The curse breaks only when the palm that carries grace meets the heart that knows restraint. She said, Amara whispered, the room leaning toward her, that grace is not a costume. It is a promise. Darius's fingers tightened around hers. Then we will keep it, he said, voice low, more to her than to the room. The knock came again, harder. Darius, open up. We have a court liaison here. They're asking if your fiancé has valid identification and immigration documents. We don't want a scandal. Immigration. Dr. Thompson frowned. She's Nigerian. Not his kind of scandal, Mr. Cole muttered. Kane's kind. Elder Jonah bent, lifted the calabash, and poured a thin line of water across the threshold between the suite and the hall. It beaded like quicksilver and did not soak into the rug. He straightened. Choose before dawn, he said. Or the water will choose for you. He turned to go, and for a blink in the polished steel of the doorframe, the suite reflected not marble and glass but a black river under moonlight, a wooden canoe and a woman with a calabash lifting a child from dark water. Then the reflection was only themselves again, startled and breathing. The door handle turned from the other side. Kane's bright smile edged into the gap. We're live in 90 seconds. The deadbolt slid back by itself with a soft metallic sigh. The line of water on the rug brightened like a blade. And a cold wind moved through the sealed room as if something old had just stepped inside. The cold wind that rushed into the room carried the faint smell of sea salt and rain. The lights flickered once, and for the briefest second, everyone in the room felt the floor hum beneath their feet, like a tide pulling back before it roared forward. Kane froze at the doorway, smile slipping. His designer suit jacket fluttered as if an invisible hand brushed past him. What's going on in here? He asked, half a whisper. No one answered. Elder Jonah had vanished. Only the silver line of water he poured remained, shimmering faintly on the rug. Amara's eyes darted toward it. It looked alive, almost pulsing with quiet energy. Dr. Thompson was the first to move. Everyone stay calm, she said, trying to sound rational though her voice wavered. Could be an air conditioning pressure shift. Air conditioning doesn't smell like ocean water, Mama Adiz murmured, clutching her beads. He's given us a warning. The water has ears tonight. Darius rose slowly. He had spent years mastering control, boardrooms, stock crashes, corporate takeovers. But right now, the calmness on his face was the brittle kind that breaks if touched. His voice came out soft. Kane, get out. Kane blinked. Excuse me? I said get out. Kane scoffed, recovering his arrogance. You don't tell me to leave my own press conference, Darius. I'm the one holding your image together right now. The world thinks you just kissed your miracle cure. They want another shot. You should thank me. Darius stepped forward, his tone steady but cold. You heard me, Kane. Leave. Kane chuckled and spread his arms mockingly. Or what? You'll break into hives if I touch your fiancé? That last word, fiancé, hung in the air. It was meant as a jab, but the moment it left his lips, the lights dimmed again. The hum under the floor grew louder, deep and rhythmic. Kane's grin faltered. Amara felt Darius's hand brush hers again, instinctively as if contact with her was his anchor. The warmth between them pulsed, strong enough to silence the noise. The air calmed. The hum stopped. But Kane had gone pale. He stumbled backward, clutching his chest. What was that? Dr. Thompson rushed forward, checking his pulse. You're fine. Elevated heart rate. Adrenaline spike. Sit down. I swear I heard something, he panted. A voice, saying my name. Amara shivered. She hadn't heard the voice, but she saw the water on the rug form a faint spiral, then spread outward, leaving a damp circle that crept toward Kane's shoes. Kane, Mama Adiz said softly, the sea doesn't call names without reason. If it calls you, answer politely. He forced a laugh though his voice cracked. You people in your village tales. I'm out of here. He straightened his tie and backed away from the door. As soon as his feet crossed the watery line, the lights returned to full brightness. The air cleared. Silence fell again. He didn't notice the small mark glowing faintly at his wrist, shaped like the spiral. Dr. Thompson exhaled and rubbed her temples. All right. I'm calling for a private security lockdown. No press. No outsiders. She turned to Darius. We can't risk this spreading. I'll need to run tests on both of you, especially your reaction pattern. Darius nodded distractedly. His gaze was still on the door. It's not spreading, he murmured. It's returning. Amara turned toward him. What do you mean? He looked at her, eyes shadowed. Every time someone lies in this house, the mark responds. When I was a boy, I saw it happen. My father lied to keep me from knowing we were broke. His hand burned for a week. The mark knows truth. Amara frowned. And Cain? He lied, Darius said quietly. About protecting me. The truth of that sentence seemed to settle like dust in the air, visible, heavy. Mama Adiz whispered, Then you must not lie, my son. Not to her. Not to yourself. Dr. Thompson closed her medical kit with a click. We can't waste time on superstition. Whatever's happening has a pattern. We'll find it. But even she couldn't shake the unease. Hours passed. The noise outside faded as security cleared the hall. The penthouse grew quiet except for the occasional rush of wind off the lagoon. Amara sat near the window, looking out at the city's night lights shimmering over the water. It was strange to think that 2 nights ago she'd been cleaning glass in another tower, watching this same skyline from the outside. Now she was inside it, wrapped in secrets she didn't understand. Darius joined her, silent. He stood close enough that his reflection overlapped with hers in the glass, 2 silhouettes bound by the same glow of the city. He broke the silence. Do you believe what that man said? About the bride price? Amara's fingers tightened around the edge of her chair. I don't know what to believe anymore. But, my grandmother used to say, when a curse begins in truth, only truth can end it. He looked at her. Then maybe we find the truth together. She nodded slowly. But how? We barely know each other. You touched me, he said quietly. And I didn't burn. That's more than I've shared with anyone. His tone was neither romantic nor cold, it was raw, a simple admission. For the first time, Amara saw not the billionaire, but the boy who had nearly drowned, the man who had learned to live without touch. She swallowed hard. Then tell me what you're afraid of, Darius. He looked back at the city lights. I'm afraid I'll fall for you before I understand why the sea wants you. Her heart skipped. The words weren't sweet, they were honest, almost helpless. Before she could answer, the sweet phone rang sharply, slicing through the moment. Mr. Cole picked it up. Yes. His brow furrowed. What? When? He turned toward them, his face pale. The press. Someone leaked the footage. The kiss. The welt. The voice. It's everywhere. Dr. Thompson groaned. We're trending globally already. Amara's stomach dropped. What does that mean? It means, Darius said, voice tight, every investor in the world now knows the man allergic to women has suddenly found a cure, and a mystery woman to go with it. They'll want proof. They'll want you. Amara looked out the window again. Cameras were already flashing below, even at this hour. What now? She whispered. Mr. Cole looked at his son gravely. We can't hide this anymore. Tomorrow morning, the board will demand a press briefing. You'll need to show them this isn't a hoax. And if it is? Darius asked. His father didn't answer. The faint sound of waves lapping against the lagoon echoed through the walls, though the penthouse was far from the shore. Amara looked toward the sound, heart thudding. From the corner of the room, the line of Elder Jonah's water rippled once, without wind, without touch, then spread, forming words only she could see. Before dawn, truth or blood. She blinked and the words were gone. Her breath caught. Darius, she whispered. The water speaking again. He turned toward her sharply. What did it say? Before she could reply, there was a knock at the door, soft, deliberate. Dr. Thompson frowned. No one should be here. Amara's voice trembled. It's not someone. It's something. The knock came again, 3 times, slower this time. And then, faintly from behind the door, a woman's voice, calm, old and eerily familiar to Amara, whispered, Child of Ngozi Ume, open. It's time to finish what your grandmother began. The air in the suite turned colder than rain. And if you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe, like and share this video so you don't miss. Amara's body went still. The voice outside the suite door was unmistakable, low, melodic, and laced with that same ancient calm she had heard as a child when her grandmother told bedtime stories about the river mothers. Mama Adiz's beads clattered softly against her wrist. Did she say, Ngozi Ume? Amara nodded slowly, her throat dry. Yes, that was my grandmother's name. Darius stepped forward, his eyes scanning the door. His voice was barely above a whisper. You're sure? Yes, Amara said. But she's been dead for 12 years. Dr. Thompson moved between them and the door. Nobody opens that, she said firmly. We don't know who's out there. But the old voice spoke again, firmer this time, as though it traveled not through the air but through their blood. Amara, my child, I cannot come in until you let me. Water does not cross a threshold unless it is invited. The room went silent. Even the hum of the city below seemed to fade. Darius looked at Amara, torn between reason and instinct. If it's her, if it's really your grandmother, how? I don't know, Amara whispered. Her hands trembled. The mark on her palm felt warm. Mr. Cole moved closer to the door. We'll let her in, he said suddenly. If the sea has chosen to speak, we must listen. Dad, Darius warned, this could be another trap. But the moment Mr. Cole's hand touched the doorknob, a soft wave of air pulsed through the room, carrying a faint sound, like distant singing, gentle and haunting. When the door opened, a woman stood there dressed in white cotton soaked with light. Her skin was bronze, her hair gray and loose down her shoulders, and her eyes, those eyes, glowed faintly blue like shallow water reflecting moonlight. No one spoke. Amara's breath hitched. Grandma? The woman smiled faintly, voice calm as the tide. You have her voice. Darius stepped protectively in front of Amara, even as awe flickered in his expression. Who are you really? The woman's eyes met his, unflinching. I am what remains of Ngozi Ume, keeper of the countermark. The sea gave me no rest until I returned. She stepped forward, bare feet gliding over marble, leaving wet footprints that shimmered. And you are the boy whose body remembers what the water tried to claim. Darius stiffened. You pulled me from the lagoon. Yes. Her voice softened. But your heart never truly left the water, Darius. That is why it burns when it meets what it does not trust. The curse was never hatred for women. It was fear, the kind that sank with you that night. Mama Adiz gasped softly, clutching her chest. You mean my son's illness? It's not an allergy? It is a bond, Ngozi said simply, between sea and soul. When he drowned, his life tied to the water. The sea claimed him, but I bargained with it. In return, the sea marked him to remember. Amara frowned. And what does that have to do with me? Ngozi turned toward her granddaughter, eyes filled with pride and sadness. Because only the blood of the one who made the bargain can unbind it. You are my line, Amara. The palm that carries grace. Silence swallowed the room. Darius's voice was quiet but urgent. Then she's the key. But Elder Jonah said. Ngozi raised a hand gently. Jonah speaks for the sea's anger. I speak for its mercy. The balance must be restored, through truth and union, not through fear. Mr. Cole frowned. Union, you mean the marriage? Ngozi nodded once. By dawn he must offer bride price not to buy her, but to honor the bond that already exists. Anything less and the sea will take what it's owed. Amara's voice trembled. What will it take? The same thing it almost took years ago, Ngozi said softly. His life. The room went cold. Dr. Thompson took a step back, trying to ground herself in logic. You're saying, if they don't marry by dawn he dies? Yes. Mama Adiz's eyes filled with tears. Then we must do it tonight. We will call the family elders. We will. Ngozi shook her head gently. No priest of this world can seal it. It must happen at the edge of the water. Where the bargain began. The lagoon, Darius said quietly. Yes, Ngozi whispered. At the hour when the city sleeps and the tides change. You must bring the pendant, the beads, and her mark. Dr. Thompson looked toward the window. It's midnight already. That gives us, barely 5 hours. Darius turned to Amara, his expression unreadable, part determination, part fear. Will you come with me? Amara hesitated. She looked at the window, the glittering lights of Lagos below, the endless water beyond. She thought of her brother, her mother, and the strange destiny she had never asked for. Finally she nodded. If my blood can end this, then yes. Ngozi smiled faintly, relief softening her features. Then you must hurry. The sea does not wait for courage. Before anyone could say another word, she began to fade, her form dissolving into light and mist until only her voice remained, whispering through the room like a lullaby. Remember, child, when truth meets water, speak only with your heart. And then she was gone. The silence that followed was heavier than fear. Mr. Cole broke it first. We'll go in the armored car. I'll alert security. Darius shook his head. No. The fewer people who know, the better. We don't need an audience. We need faith. Dr. Thompson's jaw tightened. I'm coming with you. Someone has to keep him alive if this ritual goes wrong. Mama Adise wiped her eyes. And I will bring the family beads. Adise Cole will not lose another child to the water. Within minutes they were moving. The penthouse elevator opened onto the underground garage. The city outside was asleep, but the wind carried the smell of rain. They entered a black SUV and drove through empty streets toward the lagoon. The road lights streaked past the windows like fireflies. No one spoke. Amara's heart thudded with every passing second. Darius sat beside her, silent, his gaze fixed on the water ahead. Finally, as they neared the lagoon, he said quietly, "You're not afraid." "I am," Amara said. "But not of the water. I'm afraid of failing you." He looked at her, then really looked at her, not as the poor cleaner pretending to be his fiancée, but as the woman who might save his life. "You already haven't." The SUV stopped. The lagoon shimmered under the moonlight like liquid glass. Elder Jonah was already waiting by the water's edge, a small wooden bowl in his hands. "You came," he said, his tone neither pleased nor surprised. "Good. The tide is ready." Amara stepped out first, the night wind tugging at her dress. "We're ready too." Jonah looked at her with something almost like pity. "The sea decides that." He motioned for Darius to stand beside her. "You must kneel together and speak what is true, not what the world expects but what your hearts demand. If your truth is pure, the mark will fade from his skin and the water will release him. If not..." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Amara's hand found Darius's. Their fingers intertwined naturally, as though they had been made for that single purpose. The lagoon wind whispered against their faces. Somewhere far off, thunder rolled. Jonah began to chant in a language older than Lagos itself, dipping his hand into the bowl and sprinkling water over them. Darius's chest tightened. The pendant at his neck glowed faintly. Amara's palm began to burn, not painfully but with an otherworldly warmth. "Speak," Jonah said. "Speak your truth before the tide takes it from you." Darius looked at her. His voice trembled just enough to make it human. "Amara, I was raised to think strength meant being untouchable. But you," he swallowed hard, "you touched me and I didn't break. You made me feel alive." Amara's eyes glistened. "And you saw me when the world didn't. You gave me a chance to be something more than what I was. I don't know why the sea chose me, but I choose you." Jonah's chant grew louder. The water around their feet began to glow. Then suddenly, a scream tore through the air. From behind them, Cain stumbled out of the shadows, his wrist glowing bright red where the spiral had burned into his skin earlier. "Don't listen to him," he shouted, voice twisted with pain. "He's lying. He doesn't love her, he's using her. It's all a game." The glow around the couple flickered. The tide surged violently. Jonah's eyes went wide. "He's breaking the circle." Cain staggered closer, face pale. "You think you're some fairy tale prince? She's a cleaner. You hired her like a toy." Amara's breath caught. She turned to Darius, saw hesitation in his eyes. And then, without warning, the water exploded upward like a wave of light, pulling all three of them off their feet. The last thing Amara heard was Ngozi's voice, echoing through the wind. "Truth or blood, my child. Truth or blood." The world turned upside down. Amara felt herself tumbling through icy water that glowed blue beneath the moonlight. It wasn't ordinary water. It hummed, alive with memory and power. Her lungs screamed for air, her eyes stung, and all she could see was light swirling around her like ribbons of silver. Somewhere near, Darius thrashed, fighting against the pull of the current. His pendant glowed like a small sun under the water, and the spiral mark on his neck burned bright crimson. Cain's muffled scream came and went, then silence. Amara tried to swim toward Darius, but the current dragged her back. The water pressed her from every side, heavy as glass, whispering voices that sounded like thousands of ancestors speaking all at once. Grace must meet truth. Fear must drown before love can rise. Truth or blood. Her grandmother's voice cut through them all. "Amara, child of my promise, find the mark. Bind it or lose him." She looked around, disoriented. Through the shimmer, she saw Darius sinking deeper, his body twisting, his eyes wide with terror. He reached toward her, but something, a shadow, coiled around his legs like dark smoke. Without thinking, Amara dove after him. Her lungs burned, her vision blurred, but she kept moving. The deeper she went, the louder the water's whispers became, not angry now but testing her, pushing against her courage. When she reached him, Darius's eyes were closing. The dark current had formed a spiral around him, matching the mark on his neck. Amara pressed her glowing palm against it. Instantly, the world exploded into color. A rush of images poured through her mind, a little boy gasping for air as an old woman dragged him from a river, the same pendant gleaming against his skin, a promise whispered to the water. He will never betray what saves him. But fear had turned that promise into a curse. Amara understood then, Darius's allergy wasn't to women. It was to vulnerability. The water had sealed his heart in armor, punishing him whenever he tried to open it. "Darius," she cried underwater, her voice somehow carrying through the light. "You have to let go of the fear." He didn't answer. The mark pulsed violently, choking him. So she did the only thing she could, she kissed him. It wasn't for the cameras this time. It was desperate, raw, full of the truth the sea demanded. Her palms stayed pressed to his mark as their lips met, and for a heartbeat the entire lagoon froze. Then silence. The spiral on his neck began to dissolve, glowing golden before fading completely. The darkness uncoiled and the water around them turned calm, warm, and clear. When Amara finally broke the surface, dragging Darius with her, the sky had shifted, the first hint of dawn coloring the horizon. They both gasped for air. Elder Jonah stood knee-deep in the water, his eyes wide in disbelief. The wooden bowl floated beside him, now filled with calm light. Mama Adiz and Dr. Thompson ran to the edge of the lagoon, shouting their names. Jonah's voice trembled as he spoke. "The mark, it's gone." Darius coughed weakly, holding on to Amara's arm. "It worked." She nodded, smiling through tears. "You're free." The elder looked skyward. "The sea is satisfied, for now." Then his expression darkened. He pointed toward the shore. "But one has not been forgiven." They followed his gaze. Cain lay sprawled on the sand, his wrist still glowing faintly red. His eyes fluttered open as they approached. "What happened?" he croaked. "You interfered," Jonah said grimly. "You broke the circle with lies. The sea marked you." Cain tried to laugh but the sound came out cracked. "You people and your stories." He stopped. His hand was shaking violently. The red spiral had begun to crawl up his arm like a vine. Amara stepped back. "What's happening to him?" "The sea is claiming its debt," Jonah said quietly. "His heart is filled with deceit. It cannot float." "No," Darius shouted, staggering forward. "Stop this. He doesn't deserve to die." Jonah's eyes met his. "Every lie carries a tide, young one. And every tide must go somewhere." Darius dropped to his knees beside Cain, clutching his arm. "Then let me take it. I caused this." Amara shook her head. "Darius, no." But the water around Cain began to shimmer again. The spiral slowed, its glow softening as if the sea itself were hesitating. Amara stepped forward and pressed her palm gently over the mark. "No one else dies tonight," she whispered. "If truth can heal, let it heal him too." The mark hissed, then dimmed, fading completely. Cain's trembling stopped. Jonah stared awed. Grace extended twice. The sea has seen mercy. Darius looked at Amara in astonishment. How did you do that?" She smiled faintly. "I just told the truth." The wind shifted. Dawn finally broke over the lagoon, casting gold light across the water. Darius reached for her hand, this time without fear, without hesitation. Their fingers intertwined again, natural and free. No rash. No pain. For a long moment no one spoke. Only the gentle waves answered, brushing against their ankles like a quiet blessing. Then as the sun climbed higher, Jonah turned to them. "The curse is lifted, but the promise remains. You two are bound now, not by bargain but by truth. Keep it pure or the water will remember." Amara nodded solemnly. "We will." Mama Adiz approached, tears streaking her face. "You have done what none of us could. Thank you, my daughter." She reached into her wrapper and pulled out the family beads. "These are yours now." Amara took them, trembling. Darius turned to Jonah. "What happens now?" Jonah smiled faintly, the first warmth they'd seen from him. "Now you live." He stepped back into the water, fading slowly until the ripples swallowed him. Dr. Thompson helped Cain to his feet, still shaken. "You're lucky to be alive." Cain looked at Darius and Amara, his voice raw. "I didn't know it would be real. I just wanted to protect the company." Darius shook his head. "You can't protect anything built on lies, Cain. That's what I learned tonight." Cain lowered his gaze. Then maybe I'll start learning the truth. The sky brightened fully. Lagos came awake, sounds of early traders and birds filling the air. Darius turned to Amara, still holding her hand. When this started, I hired you to act like my fiancée. Amara smiled softly. I remember. He took a deep breath. Now I'm asking you, not for my parents, not for my company, but for me. Be my fiancée for real. Amara blinked, her heart pounding. You mean? He nodded. For real. No contracts. No pretending. Just truth. She looked into his eyes, steady, open, human, and felt something inside her finally settle. Yes, she whispered. Mama Adiz clapped her hands joyfully. Ah, the sea gives and the sea blesses. Dr. Thompson chuckled softly. Guess I'll be attending a real wedding after all. The morning sun rose over the lagoon, painting the water gold. The wind carried a soft voice, familiar, fading content. My work is done. Love has learned to breathe again. Amara turned toward the sound and smiled through tears. Goodbye, Grandma. The waves answered with one last shimmer, then calmed completely. She leaned her head against Darius's shoulder. So what now? He smiled faintly, watching the horizon. Now, we live without fear. Together. And as the city woke to another day, the lagoon glistened quietly, keeping its secrets, watching over the two souls who had finally given it peace. The morning breeze drifted across the lagoon, carrying the scent of wet sand and promise. Seagulls circled lazily above as the sun climbed higher, gilding the water with gold. Darius stood at the edge of the shore, shoes in hand, the salt water lapping at his bare feet. He had never realized how warm the sea could feel when it wasn't trying to drown him. Behind him, Amara sat on a rock, her soaked gown clinging to her skin, hair wild from the night's chaos. Yet even in that disheveled state, she radiated peace, the calm after a long storm. For a while neither of them spoke. Darius finally broke the silence, voice low. All my life I've built walls. Around myself, my company, even my parents. I thought control was strength. Amara looked up, eyes soft. But strength isn't about never bending, Darius. It's about knowing when to let the tide in. He smiled faintly, still looking at the water. You sound like her. Your mother? He shook his head. No. Your grandmother. Amara's lips curved into a bittersweet smile. She always said wisdom flows where patience waits. He turned toward her. Then maybe patience was waiting for me to meet you. Amara blushed lightly, but before she could answer, Mama Adiz approached from the car park, holding a towel and a bright wrapper. My children, she said warmly, you both need to get out of those wet clothes before the Lagos breeze gives you fever. Amara laughed softly and accepted the wrapper. Thank you, Ma. You're my daughter now, Mama Adiz said proudly, adjusting her geli as she spoke. The sea has chosen. Who am I to argue with the sea? Dr. Thompson walked up behind her, shaking her head in disbelief. I'm still trying to figure out how to explain this to the media. We'll have 1,000 reporters waiting at Coltech Tower by now. Mr. Cole joined them, looking tired but content. We'll tell them what they need to hear, he said. That the CEO found healing through truth and love. Darius frowned. But the world will want proof. They'll demand a story. Dr. Thompson smiled wryly. Then give them one. People love miracles. Amara looked from Darius to the water, her brow furrowed. It's not a miracle, she said softly. It's a warning. If truth set us free, lies will bring it back. Jonah's voice echoed faintly from the lagoon, calm and distant. She speaks truth. They all froze. Darius turned sharply toward the water, but there was no one there, just the gentle lap of the tide. Mama Adiz crossed herself quickly. Elder Jonah never leaves without leaving his echo. Dr. Thompson exhaled. Then let's take that echo and go before it becomes a storm. They made their way back to the SUV. The drive to Victoria Island was silent except for the rhythmic sound of tires cutting through puddles left by the night's rain. From the back seat, Amara gazed out the window. The city was waking, market women arranging their wares, okadas buzzing like bees, men selling newspapers shouting the morning's headlines. And then she saw it, her own face on the front page of a tabloid pasted to a kiosk. The headline screamed, Billionaire cured by love? Meet the woman who saved Darius Cole. Her heart dropped. Oh no. Dr. Thompson followed her gaze and sighed. Too late. The story's out. Darius leaned forward to see it, grimacing. They're going to chase you now. They'll twist it, say you planned it, that it was all for money. Amara turned toward him, calm but firm. Let them say what they want. The truth doesn't need defending, it only needs consistency. He smiled faintly. You always know what to say. She chuckled. Maybe because I've spent my life cleaning people's messes. Words, dirt, they're not so different. That made him laugh for real, and for the first time in years, it wasn't a measured, polite sound, it was human, free. When they arrived at Coltech Tower, a crowd had already gathered, journalists, investors and curious onlookers holding up phones. Cameras flashed as soon as Darius stepped out of the SUV, his hands still intertwined with Amara's. Questions flew like arrows. Mr. Cole, is it true you were cured by this woman's touch? Miss, were you his cleaner before all this? Is the engagement real? Dr. Thompson raised a hand to block the flashes, but Darius raised his other hand, commanding silence the way only a true leader could. The crowd quieted almost instantly. He looked out at them, the skeptics, the doubters, the opportunists, and then glanced at Amara before speaking. I spent years hiding behind science and power, he began. I called it an allergy because I was too afraid to call it what it was: fear. Fear of being seen. Fear of being touched. Fear of love. The crowd murmured. Cameras zoomed in. He turned toward Amara. This woman didn't heal me with magic. She healed me with truth, the kind that doesn't perform for cameras or contracts. Amara's eyes filled with tears. He took a breath. Our engagement began as an act, but the moment I touched her, the act became real. She showed me that strength isn't control, it's vulnerability. And if that makes me human again, then yes, he smiled faintly. She cured me. The crowd erupted. Flashes went wild, people cheered and some even clapped. But not everyone looked pleased. At the edge of the crowd, a man in a gray suit whispered into his phone, his expression dark. Dr. Thompson caught the movement from the corner of her eye. We should go, she murmured. Darius nodded, but before he could lead Amara inside, a journalist shouted, So when's the wedding? The question made the crowd laugh, but Darius didn't flinch. He looked at Amara, eyes gleaming with that same sincerity from the lagoon. When the sea tells us it's time, he said simply and led her inside. Inside the tower, everything felt different. The same marble floors she used to mop now gleamed under her feet as people stared, not in pity but in awe. Amara whispered, I never thought I'd walk through this lobby holding your hand. Darius glanced at her with a small smile. Neither did I. But maybe this is how destiny cleans up after itself. They both laughed softly, the tension melting away for a moment. But as they reached the private elevator, a cold draft brushed past them, sharp, unnatural, and familiar. Amara froze. The reflection in the elevator door flickered. For a split second, instead of their reflections, she saw water, dark and still, and a single glowing spiral beneath the surface. Then it was gone. Her voice trembled. Darius, did you see that? He frowned. See what? She swallowed hard, gripping his hand tighter. The mark, it's not gone. The sea hasn't finished with us. The elevator doors closed, sealing Amara and Darius inside with the soft hum of the machinery. But to Amara, that hum sounded eerily like the water's whisper. Her heartbeat quickened as she stared at their reflections, searching for another flicker, another spiral. Nothing. Just their faces and the golden morning light. Darius squeezed her hand. You're shaking. What did you see? Amara hesitated. The water, it's watching us. I saw the mark again. Just for a second. He frowned. It's over, Amara. Jonah said the curse was lifted. She turned to him, voice trembling but firm. Jonah said the sea was satisfied, not finished. There's a difference. The elevator chimed and stopped at the top floor, Darius's private suite. When the doors opened, they were met by chaos. Security guards stood near the window, and Dr. Thompson was arguing with a tall man in a gray suit, the same one who had whispered into his phone at the press conference. Who are you? Darius asked sharply. The man turned with a tight smile. Samuel Kane, corporate legal advisor. Appointed by the board this morning. Amara stiffened. Kane? But. He raised a hand to cut her off. Not that Kane. I'm his brother. My sibling went missing last night. His tone sharpened. And from what I hear, you were the last people to see him alive. Dr. Thompson stepped forward. He's not missing. He was at the lagoon. He's safe. You can reach him through. His phone is off, Samuel interrupted. And I have one witness claiming he saw you drag my brother into the water. Amara gasped. That's a lie. Samuel smirked. Then you won't mind proving it. He opened a file and slid a document across Darius's desk. Until this is resolved, the board is freezing your assets and demanding an internal review. They believe you may have staged your miracle for publicity. Darius's eyes darkened. You can't be serious. I'm afraid they are, Samuel said smoothly. And since my brother disappeared after confronting you, I'm here to ensure justice. Dr. Thompson crossed her arms. Justice or revenge? Samuel's smile didn't falter. Sometimes they're the same thing. He left without waiting for a reply. The door shut behind him with a quiet click. The room went silent. Mr. Cole's voice came through the speakerphone from his home office. I just heard. The board wants a meeting tonight. They're calling it an emergency crisis hearing. Darius clenched his fists. They think I killed Cain. Mama Adi's worried voice joined over the speaker. My son, you must tread carefully. The sea may forgive, but men do not. Dr. Thompson rubbed her forehead. We can prove Cain's alive. The last time we saw him, he was breathing fine. Amara spoke softly, unless. Everyone turned to her. She swallowed. Unless the sea took him anyway. Darius's expression hardened. No. We saved him. The mark faded, she said. But maybe mercy isn't the same as freedom. Maybe he still owes a debt. Dr. Thompson frowned. You're saying the curse claimed him instead? Amara met her gaze. It warned us, truth or blood. I told the truth to save Darius. But Cain lied again the moment he left that lagoon. A low rumble shook the windows. Everyone froze. It wasn't thunder, it was too close, too deep. The lights flickered. Amara stepped to the window. Below, the streets of Victoria Island shimmered. The lagoon water had risen past its edge, spilling faintly into the road despite the clear sky. The tide's coming in, she whispered. But it's not supposed to. Dr. Thompson's phone buzzed violently. She glanced at it, then went pale. Satellite feed shows a pressure surge under the lagoon. The sea level's rising, fast. Mr. Cole's voice crackled through the speaker. That's impossible. The weather's calm. Mama Adi's whisper came next, trembling. It's the water's grief. The sea mourns the one it marked. The rumble grew louder. A thin crack appeared in the window glass, not from force but from vibration, as though the building itself could feel the sea's anger. Amara turned to Darius. We have to go back. Now. Dr. Thompson grabbed her arm. Go back where? To the lagoon, Amara said urgently. If Cain's gone, we have to know. The sea won't stop until it's balanced again. Darius hesitated. Amara, this could destroy everything. The press, the board. This isn't about the board, she said fiercely. This is about truth. He stared at her for a long moment, then nodded. All right. We go. They raced through the city in silence, escorted by 2 security vehicles that struggled to keep up. The sky had turned strange, heavy clouds rolling in from nowhere, the air thick and electric. When they reached the lagoon, the shoreline was almost unrecognizable. The tide had risen halfway up the steps, and the once clear water now churned dark and restless. Elder Jonah stood waiting on the pier, his robes whipping in the wind. His expression was grim. You felt it, he said. The sea is restless. Cain, Darius said. Where is he? Jonah looked toward the water. He was offered a second chance. He chose greed instead of gratitude. He tried to sell the secret of the mark to men who worship power, not peace. Amara's stomach sank. Then the sea. Jonah nodded. Has taken its due. Thunder cracked overhead. The water surged higher, licking the pier. Amara's voice trembled. Can we stop it? Perhaps, Jonah said. If the bond between you and him is pure. If you remind the sea that truth still lives. Darius stepped closer. How? Jonah gestured toward the waves. The sea marked you as one of its own. Step forward together. Speak its language. What language? Darius asked. Not words, Jonah said softly. Intent. Amara took Darius's hand again. Their fingers locked and the warmth returned, that same hum that had silenced the storm before. The wind howled around them, waves slamming against the pier. Darius looked at her, eyes steady. You ready? She nodded. Always. They stepped forward. The moment their feet touched the water, the sea stilled. Everything, the wind, the thunder, even time, seemed to hold its breath. Amara closed her eyes and whispered, We speak truth. We owe no lies. Darius echoed her. No fear. No deceit. Only love. The water glowed beneath them. Then a shape began to rise from the lagoon, human at first glance but made entirely of shifting light and water. Kane's face emerged, distorted but unmistakable. "Why didn't you let me go?" the voice gurgled through the waves. Amara's breath caught. "Kane? You took my chance," the figure hissed. "You let me drown for your peace." Darius shook his head. "No. We saved you." The water creature sneered. "Then why am I still bound? Why can't I leave?" Elder Jonah's voice carried over the roar. "Because you have not confessed the lie that tied you to the sea." The figure's face twisted in agony. I didn't want the money. I wanted his place." It pointed a dripping hand at Darius. "I wanted the company, the power, the life without limits." The sea roared, waves surging violently. Amara's palm burned again, the spiral flaring to life. She grabbed Darius's arm. "Now Darius, speak your truth." He shouted over the wind, voice breaking. "I forgive you, Kane. But I won't trade truth for comfort anymore." The creature screamed, and then burst into light, dissolving into mist that rained gently over them. The sea calmed. The storm faded. Jonah's voice broke the silence. "The balance is restored." Amara turned to Darius, tears streaming down her face. "It's over." But Jonah's eyes lingered on the glowing mark on her palm. "Not yet. One more truth remains. The sea never claimed him alone. It claimed you too." Amara's breath hitched. "What do you mean?" Jonah looked at her gravely. "When you took his burden, you bound yourself to the same promise. If he ever breaks it, you will bear the price." Her hand trembled in Darius's. The waves whispered quietly around them, not angry now but watchful. And as dawn began to rise again, Amara realized the sea had not freed them. It had united them, in love, in truth, and in eternal consequence. The first light of dawn spilled across the lagoon, soft and golden, painting ripples of peace where chaos had just raged. The city's skyline shimmered in the distance, but in that quiet moment, it felt like the world had stopped, holding its breath for whatever would come next. Elder Jonah stood still at the water's edge, the hem of his robe soaked and heavy. His eyes were on Amara, not with judgment, but with the sorrow of a man who knew too well the weight of divine bargains. "You mean?" Amara's voice trembled, her palm still glowing faintly. "If Darius breaks his promise to the sea, to live in truth, I'll pay the price?" Jonah nodded slowly. "The bond you forged was not one of performance or convenience. You both made vows that touched deeper than the earth itself. When love was tested, the sea marked it as sacred. If either heart betrays the truth, both shall drown, not in water but in sorrow." Darius turned toward Amara, gripping her shoulders. "Then I will never lie. I will never hurt you. I swear it." Jonah's expression softened. "Do not swear in haste, son of Cole. Words made of fire can burn the one who speaks them. Keep your truth quietly, let your actions be your vow." The waves lapped gently against the pier as Jonah's form began to shimmer. The morning light seemed to pass through him. "My task here is done," he said. "But remember, the sea forgets nothing. Honor it and it will cradle you. Betray it, and it will return for what it is owed." He raised his hand in blessing, and with that, his figure dissolved like mist. Only his wooden bowl remained, floating quietly in the shallows. Amara stood frozen for a moment, then whispered, "He's gone." Dr. Thompson exhaled shakily. "Good. I've had enough ghostly wisdom for one lifetime." Mama Adiz smiled faintly through her tears. "No, child. Ghosts are for those who forget. We have been reminded." The group turned back toward the cars, exhausted and drenched. But as Darius led Amara by the hand, a peace settled over him, a peace unlike anything he'd felt before. For the first time he didn't feel cursed. He felt chosen. 2 weeks later. Coltech Tower. The boardroom that once buzzed with anxiety now stood still as Darius walked in, holding Amara's hand. The members of the board, polished, powerful and previously skeptical, rose as he entered. He looked every inch the leader he had become, confident, calm and human. "Good morning," Darius began. "I know the past few weeks have been eventful. You've all heard the stories, read the headlines and drawn your conclusions. But I'm not here to defend a miracle." He paused, his gaze sweeping the room. "I'm here to remind you that a company is only as strong as its truth. And for years mine was built on fear, fear of failure, fear of trust, fear of love." The room was silent. He took Amara's hand and lifted it. "This woman taught me that truth doesn't destroy, it rebuilds. She stood by me when the world thought I was broken. And in doing so, she became the reason I'm whole." One of the older board members cleared his throat. "So what are you saying, Mr. Cole? Darius smiled slightly. I'm saying Coltech is entering a new era. One where we lead not with power but with purpose. We will rebuild our ethics, our partnerships, and our humanity. Starting today, the Cole Foundation will invest 2 billion naira into healthcare and education for underprivileged communities. The board murmured in surprise. Dr. Thompson, seated near the back, smiled proudly. And as for my personal life, Darius continued, looking directly at the cameras, the woman beside me is not a publicity stunt. She's my truth. And soon she will be my wife. A ripple of gasps went around the room, followed by spontaneous applause. Amara blushed, but she didn't flinch. She looked calm, regal even, dressed in a deep blue gown that shimmered softly like water under moonlight. After the conference, as they left the tower together, the journalists outside erupted in cheers. One of them shouted, "Mr. Cole, what made you fall in love with her?" Darius paused, smiled, and replied, "Because she saw the man I was drowning to hide." The crowd went wild. But as they stepped into their car, Amara's hand brushed against her palm, and she froze. The spiral was faint, but it pulsed once, glowing softly before fading again. Darius noticed. "What's wrong?" "Nothing," she said quickly, forcing a smile. "Just nerves." He kissed her forehead. "It's over, Amara. We're free now." She nodded, though the unease wouldn't leave her. That night, the Cole mansion was alive with celebration. Family, friends, and business partners filled the halls, toasting to love and healing. The chandeliers sparkled like captured stars, laughter echoed across the garden, and soft music drifted through the air. Amara stood on the balcony, looking out at the lagoon glowing silver under the moon. It looked peaceful, almost innocent. Mama Adiz joined her, resting a hand on her shoulder. "You're quiet, my daughter? A bride should be smiling." Amara smiled faintly. "Just thinking, Mama, about how quickly life changes." "Change is not always bad," the older woman said. "Sometimes it's how blessings hide their faces." Down below, Darius was laughing with his father and Dr. Thompson, his joy unguarded for once. Amara's heart warmed at the sight, but just as she turned back toward the water, something rippled. The surface of the lagoon moved, not with the wind but with intent. And for a split second she saw it, her grandmother's face reflected in the water, serene and watching. Amara's breath caught. "Grandma," she whispered. The reflection smiled gently, then vanished into the moonlight. But the wind carried a faint whisper that made her blood run cold. "Truth, my child, must be kept." The faint glow returned to her palm, flickering like a warning. Darius appeared behind her, wrapping an arm around her waist. "What are you looking at?" She turned, forcing a smile. "Just the sea." He kissed her temple softly. "You've done enough for tonight. Come inside." She let him lead her in, her smile warm, her heart steady, but as the doors closed behind them, the lagoon rippled again. This time no face appeared. Only a single spiral of light spread across the surface before fading into darkness. And deep beneath the waves, something ancient stirred, not in anger but in patience. Watching. Waiting. Because the sea never forgets.